morning and welcome back to day 2 of the North Central Region Mini Land Grant Conference. I'm Megan Kaiser and it's my pleasure to welcome back to your screen Dr. Marshall Stewart. He's our Chief Engagement Officer and Vice Chancellor of Extension and Engagement at the University of Missouri. Good morning, Dr. Stewart.
Hey, good morning to you, Megan, and thank you for the wonderful work you and your partner in crime, H.C. Russell, have done of keeping this thing going. I said yesterday how excited we were that the two of you had been willing to get in front of this thing and be our host, and I just want to thank you again for the marvelous job you've done. And I know H.C. is going to be coming on a little later, but so I don't forget it, I just want to say thank you. You guys do a great job in this venue. You also do a terrific job for us as advocates, as our CARET reps, and really we're very fortunate to have, and I'll say this to the entire region and all those that are viewing us this morning, to have Megan and HC as such great advocates that are just so seamlessly go through this process and actually drag me, and as you'll meet Dean Daubert in a few minutes and others through this process of advocacy and trying to really do the right thing for the Land Grant University. So Megan, thank you. Thank you for being with us this morning. I want to kind of pivot for a moment. I'm going to introduce a couple folks here in just a second, but I wanted to make sure this morning that as we set the stage, yesterday we really looked at the regional issues and we had a wonderful presentation by Wendy Winterstein, and we also had the opportunity to hear from some other wonderful speakers, Carrie Castile and just so many others. And again, one of my partners here at the university, Shibu, Joseph, and I have worked so closely together trying to put this together with a committee of folks across the region. But two of the people that have been really instrumental in this whole process are Robin Shepard and Jeff Jacobson. Both of them have been great teammates and really stood in the forefront of helping this be a regional event. And I want to say thank you to them because they helped drive this, help us think about how to make it truly a regional event that had a flavor of Mizzou, certainly. We're definitely black and gold. We definitely want to make sure that we get the tiger out there, but it's also to make sure that we are, again, representing something that's good for this entire region. So, again, I want to thank Shibu and Jeff and Robin and all the players that have made this such a great event. This morning, I'm really excited to bring to you two people that are not only great colleagues, but people that I consider friends, people that I get the opportunity, and I say that very genuinely, to work with on a day in and day out basis. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce both of them to you, and then I'll pivot over to Dean Daubert. He'll start first and do a presentation. Then we'll go from him to Majed Dweik, who's the Dean of Agriculture at Lincoln, for his presentation. But let me give you a little bit of background on both of them just to set the stage. Dean Daubert comes to us. He started here at Mizzou in 2017 as Vice Chancellor and Dean of Agriculture in the College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources. I will plead a little bit here that I was obviously glad to see somebody that I had known prior in my career from North Carolina State University joining me in this work. But Dean Daubert came in here and has done a terrific job since that time of really trying to reset a college and think about where the college should go going forward. And he's going to talk to you about that strategic plan. His background is in food science. He comes with a wonderful academic pedigree of Michigan State, Penn State, brilliant food science background and work in that space. He was department head of the food science area there at North Carolina State before coming here. And again, as I mentioned about Carrie Castile yesterday, is also a graduate of the Food Systems Leadership Institute. So another person that has come through that great APLU program and has certainly continued to grow in leadership and doing great things here at Mizzou. Also, I want to introduce to you Majed Dweik. Dr. Dweik is not only, again, a person that I work with, but a friend, and is our leader at the 1890 institution here in Missouri, Lincoln University, a historically important university, one that really brings a richness not only to our state, but also to the 1890 system. And we're very privileged to have Majed join us today. He's joining us actually from Lincoln University today, so down in Jeff City, and so we're really glad to have him. His background is in engineering. He brings to us a background in electrical, computer engineering, biomedical engineering. He's engineering all things, and now he's steeped deeply in land grant mission and working in the area of agriculture, food, and all the things that we deal, not only in research, but also in extension and academic programs, just as Dean Daubert is. So, Majed, it's really good to have you with us as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop. We're going to come back when both of these finish presenting. We'll have a dialogue. You'll have an opportunity to feed questions in. We want you to do that. So please be listening. Those will be fed into me, and we'll certainly get any questions you have. But without further ado, I'm going to give you Chris Daubert, Dean of Agriculture, Vice Chancellor of Agriculture here at University of Missouri. So Dean Daubert.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the University of Missouri. We have a gorgeous and a beautiful campus, and I only wish that you could all be here with us this morning to enjoy it. I too want to add my thanks to the coordinators of this mini land grant. Thank you, Marshall Stewart. Thank you, Shibu Jose. We appreciate your hard work and all that you did to bring this mini land grant to reality. I also want to pay tribute and to give my thanks to our CARET representatives, Megan Kaiser and H.C. Russell. Thanks so much for your advocating for our college, for MU Extension. We so appreciate what you do for us each and every day. It's also a privilege for me to be sharing the screen this morning with a friend and colleague of mine, Dean Majed Dweik, as Marshall mentioned, Dean of the other land-grant institution here in the state of Missouri, Lincoln University. Dean, I look forward to hearing from you later this morning as well. So I've been asked to speak with all of you a little bit about the strategic planning process that we undertook years ago, shortly after my arrival to the University of Missouri. The title of our strategic plan is The Drive to Distinction. The Drive to Distinction. And interestingly, an interesting side note is that was actually the title of my seminar when I interviewed for this position back in March of 2017. So this strategic plan took approximately 16 months to develop. One of the things that I pledged and promised to the college and to the university was that I would put the college through a planning process for its future. And as I mentioned, that took about 16 months from start to launch. The planning process itself was completed in 3 different phases. The first phase was the discovery and analysis phase. The second phase was the testing and refinement of the actual strategic plan. And the third phase was the writing, the communication, and the actual launching of the strategic plan itself. So whenever I talk to audiences, to groups about the importance of strategic planning and the need to have a plan in place to unite a community, unity through community for a shared vision, the first thing I typically experience, and maybe many of you can relate to this response, is the faculty and the staff typically roll their eyes. Here we go again through another leader wanting to take us through a strategic planning process. I get it. I've experienced it myself. And the reason is because strategic planning is hard work. You have to have a lot of difficult conversations to unite a community, to bring a shared vision to the forefront. That first phase, the discovery and analysis phase that we embarked upon several years ago, involved more than 150 different interviews with multiple focus groups. We held more than 5 different big leadership workshops. We looked at 34 different peer group strategic plans. If your unit, your organization, your college had a strategic plan that was visible to the public prior to 2018, there's a strong chance that we reviewed it and looked at your college's strategic plan. In addition, we also considered more than 120 different marketing materials that the college had produced in the previous few years. So through that hard work, we established our strategic plan, and most strategic plans have a similar framework. They include a vision statement, a mission statement with some strategic priorities or imperative areas for which the unit or the organization will identify goals and objectives, again, to move that unit forward. The vision statement for our drive to distinction is we imagine a healthy world. I noticed behind me you see the drive to distinction, the branding of that strategic plan, and below it you see together we are creating a healthy world. That is our short and concise vision statement. The mission statement that usually follows in a strategic plan is just a greater description of what that vision statement represents. So let me talk briefly about our vision statement. You'll notice that we're really uniting the college around the word healthy. Healthy. In our initial phase of our strategic plan, we turned to analytical tools to evaluate or to study the words that were most impactful to Missouri, to the region around agriculture and natural resources. Several words through the analytical assessment surfaced and became apparent to us, words that were important to Missouri agriculture and natural resources. The number one word of importance was water, followed by the word environment. Healthy was also in the top 5 words of importance to the region. On our campus right now, here at the University of Missouri, our number one initiative is around a precision health movement. We're excited to open a new facility later this fall around precision health, and we thought this was a tremendous opportunity to connect the college to the university's vision for itself around precision health. So with all of this information, we identified the vision statement, we imagine a healthy world. Our strategic plan, the drive to distinction, can be segmented. It can be compartmentalized into 3 different areas. The first being our commitment to our strategic priorities. All of us in our lives, we have commitment to priorities, those things that we hold closest to our hearts, those things that we protect. These 6 areas represent CAFNR's core strategic priorities. On the left-hand side of this slide, you'll see a description of our commitment to the traditional land-grant mission: research, teaching, and extension. At the top, ensuring student success, followed by advancing research and innovation. And third, our extension priority, empowering all Missourians. Those 3 priorities represent our commitment to the land-grant mission itself. Each of these priorities within our plan, and again, I would invite all of you to take a closer look at the drive to distinction. It is visible publicly to everyone through our website, but each of the priority areas have identified goals with strategies and tactics to help us move our organization forward with respect to each of these priority areas. On the right-hand side of this slide, we've identified 3 other priorities that our college feels very strongly about, that pursuing these priorities will bring greater distinction to the College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources. The first is showcasing our leadership. This priority is not only about developing future leaders for agriculture, natural resources, but it's about promoting our people, our faculty, our staff, and students to encourage them to assume leadership roles throughout the state, throughout the country, throughout the world, helping our faculty, our people assume roles of responsibility. It's our belief that this will bring recognition and build our reputation, again, across the region, across the country, and around the planet. The next priority on the right-hand side is a commitment to cultivating a diverse and inclusive community. In our state, agriculture is not necessarily the most diverse of all industries, and our college maintains a commitment to creating a welcoming environment, to helping agriculture and natural resource industries embrace and acknowledge many different people, all different people that contribute to these industries. The third priority on the right is championing global citizenship and engagement. We don't believe that you can be a global college, a global institution, without a commitment to international programs, and this priority reflects our commitment to an international effort. The next section, or segment, if you will, of the Drive to Distinction identifies CAFNR's programs of distinction. These are programs that were long in existence within the college. These programs already have an established audience, a broad reputation, and a strong commitment to serving Missouri and the region. And our strategic plan identifies these areas, these programs of distinction. When we identified this inaugural class of our programs of distinction, we established a number of criteria by which a program needed to meet to be included amongst this inaugural class. These are programs that we must continue to invest in, support, and to help grow as they can become even greater programs in service to the region, to agriculture and natural resources. I'll just mention a few of them. The top one, FAPRI, the Food and Agricultural Policy Research Institute. This is a group of agricultural economists that inform policymakers to the futures of agricultural markets and their outlooks. Another program of distinction within the college that I want to mention is the Show Me Select Replacement Heifer Program. This is one of the most successful extension programs ever launched across the country. This program of distinction attempts to improve the quality of the livestock industry here in the state of Missouri. In its 23 years of existence, it's contributed nearly $200 million to the state of Missouri's economic impacts. The third component of our strategic plan are the grand ideas. Typically, these are identified as big, hairy, audacious goals, oftentimes through the acronym BHAGs. But these are the bold and audacious ideas that we're currently not pursuing or hadn't been at the time of strategic plan launch. I liken these ideas to running with scissors or walking that tightrope without a safety net beneath. There's no guarantee that through an investment in pursuit of these ideas will generate new revenues. But it is our belief that when successful in pursuit of these grand ideas, we can bring greater distinction to the college and to its people. Let me mention a few of these grand ideas, and a couple of them have already achieved some level of success. The second one on this list, healthy ecosystems for life on the planet, known as the acronym HELP. We have partnered with the Missouri Department of Conservation to about a year ago establish a new center within the college called the Center for Regenerative Agriculture. So that's something that we're able to attribute back to the college's strategic plan. Another grand idea that you will and can read on this slide is the Show Me State Food, Beverage, and Forest Products Manufacturing Initiative. This initiative is uniting the higher education institutions across Missouri. In fact, Dean Majed and I are partnering on this initiative right now. We're working closely with Missouri commodity groups as well as the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Conservation to help us increase the economic impact of Missouri agriculture. Like your states, agriculture in Missouri is by far and away the #1 industry. In Missouri right now, agriculture contributes approximately $88 billion each year to the economy of our state. In partnership with MU Extension, we have established a huge goal, a lofty, ambitious, a moonshot goal, if you will, to double that number by the year 2030. Expanding and creating opportunities for Missouri's commodities is a great way for us to move towards that goal. Adding value to Missouri's commodities is one of the things that we're working hard through this initiative to achieve. As I begin to wrap up, more than half of our time since we've launched the strategic plan has been under this dark umbrella of the global pandemic. But I will submit to all of you that I am so thankful that we had that strategic plan in place prior to the pandemic. We have used that strategic plan to inform us, to serve as our North Star as we chose where to invest and where to place our efforts to move this organization, to move this college forward. As I wrap up, I'm going to talk about a few of the results that keeping our focus on goals and objectives in the strategic plan have enabled us to achieve. The first thing on this slide, under ensuring student success, we are now requiring all students within our college prior to graduation to have some type of external learning experience. We call this the RISE program. It could involve research in a laboratory, an international service learning experience, or some other type of experiential learning activity. We're awfully proud that we can talk about the college's ability to achieve a 99.2% success rate. In other words, nearly 100% of students graduating from CAFNR are successfully employed within their career choices or are in professional schools, again, within 6 months of their graduation. We are actually making significant progress relative to enrolling underrepresented minority students. We're currently at an all-time high within the college of approximately 13.2% of our students coming from under-enrolled populations. Lastly, when we all had to pivot to look at new ways of educating and interacting with our students, the college was very quick in acquiring large spaces where we could educate students in a socially distanced and a safe way. One of the spaces that we had within the college is our livestock arena. We converted that livestock arena into a major classroom where we were able to educate approximately 220 students at a time in that facility. At the end of the school year, the college had approximately 80% of all its core sections were able to offer some form of face-to-face instruction to our students. Relative to advancing research and innovation, Associate Dean Shibu here in the studio this morning, has set an ambitious goal that by the year 2025, we will double research expenditures. The college currently has set an all-time record in terms of its grant awards for fiscal year 21 in excess of $55 million. $56 million. Just been corrected by Shibu. Our researchers have also managed some great successes. They generate approximately $440,000 per research FTE within the college. And you can see from the remainder of this slide, we've also managed some significant success in attracting federal funding to support our people and our programs. And lastly, empowering Missourians. I start off by mentioning that lofty goal that we've set in partnership with MU Extension, that by the year 2030, we want to double the economic impact of Missouri agriculture and natural resource industries. We've also partnered with other organizations to help promote new agribusinesses throughout the state, a partnership with the Small Business Development Center. And last year, we were not able to have live field days, and we had to quickly pivot. And we worked hard with MU Extension to have our field days in a virtual format, and they were largely very, very well attended and well received. So in conclusion, I want to express my commitment to pursuing the outcomes, the goals, the objectives that we have in our college's strategic plan, the drive to distinction. One of the things, as a parting comment that I'll mention, is that we all face and have faced and will continue to face financial challenges. This strategic planning process has taught me that strategy must always drive budget. Budget can never drive your strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean, and I know that we'll have some questions here in a few minutes for Dean Daubert, but before we get to those, I want to go to, again, another colleague, the Dean of Agriculture at Lincoln University, Dr. Majed Dweik. So, Majed, we'll go to you.
All right, thank you, and thank you for the introduction, Marshall. And I want to thank, the entire team. So, and the list is long, but since yesterday, I enjoyed every piece of this conference. So, and thank you for the invitation to come and share with you here in the mini land grant meeting for the North Central region. I am Majed Dweik. I'm Dean of the College of Agriculture and also the 1890 Director at Lincoln University. So just, let's see if, okay. So just a little bit about myself. So I'm a product of the Land Grant University. So as you see that I graduated with my undergrad as well as the graduate study from University of Missouri. Both my children are also in a land grant university. So I got to enjoy and continue to learn about the great things about land grant university. So while I'm at Lincoln University, so again, I've been at Lincoln University for about 14 years. I served as a teaching and research faculty. About 3 years ago, I became a full professor there. Then I became the Dean of the College of Agriculture. So, but also I have the privilege to also establish certain landmarks at Lincoln University when Lincoln University gave me the chance to thrive at the university. So I founded the Center of Nanotechnology due to my work in that area. And as an engineer, and we had a speaker yesterday talking about the collaborative effort when we work in agriculture, and this is the exciting thing about agriculture, that you have this multi-discipline where you are sharing the expertise from other areas, so you can come up with some novel ideas and even novel product. So I had the privilege again to work with collaborators from University of Missouri, and we have patent, with some of the work that we have done in nanotechnology and also in foodborne pathogen, in detection foodborne pathogen, where we have reduced the time of detecting pathogen from 2 weeks to about few hours. So, but again, the institution Lincoln University has really been very welcoming and allow me to thrive while I'm at Lincoln University. So with that, I want to just give you some historical background about Lincoln University. And I feel that there is an urgency to understand really the deep history of Lincoln University and what does it represent. So it is 155 years ago when this university was established. It was established based on a dream and also a mission where the 62nd and 65th Colored Infantry recognized that education is essential, where at that time Black folks were denied education. So they upon themselves took that initiative to establish this university, this institution, 155 years ago, to educate, to offer the education for Black folks. So in 1890, we became a land grant university. And that's another privilege and also exciting for the institution, where now the state of Missouri has 2 land grant universities to serve the state and the citizen of Missouri. So again, it's also important to understand our structure. So we are, again, small university among all the sister universities here in the North Central, but it's just to give you an idea of our organization structure for Lincoln University. So you can see that we have a board of creator and then president, but then again, the size of the university is small. So where you have only the 3 colleges, and one of which is the College of Agriculture. When I assumed this position, so I looked at the organization chart for the College of Agriculture, and now that we're talking about the change, and this is the topic of this session, so I looked really hard on our organization structure for the college. And being in the college, again, for that long, I know the deficiencies or the support that we need in the college to allow us to thrive, to take us to the future. So you can see that under the College of Agriculture, so I handle the 3 departments, the academic department, as well as the research and extension. But then I have created also another support system to allow, again, to assist all those 3 departments in an efficient way. So efficiency was one of the challenges that I was working on to solve, and to a certain extent we have been able to overcome that challenge. So again, we have also a mission and a vision. So again, with being, so our vision is really to inspire not only the faculty and staff, but also the students that we have, to inspire them so they can become innovative, and then the transformation of knowledge to take it to another level. So, but our mission is still the same. So, which basically we conduct the research as well as do all the outreach work, as well as the academic component. So we still have those 3 components under the College of Agriculture. So in our academic program, again, we offer the Bachelor of Science. Also, we have Masters of Science in Sustainable Agriculture, but also we offer PhD through the collaboration and the Memorandum of Understanding that we have with the University of Missouri. So when I joined, again, the Lincoln University, I found out that there was a Memorandum of Understanding where we have the ability, even though that we do not offer PhD program, but there is that mechanism where we collaborate with University of Missouri, where we can bring the student, they become student, PhD student of University of Missouri, but at the same time advise that student, so we'll have credit for advising a PhD student and to work on a collaborative project at the same time. So again, in the cooperative research program, so we have the animal science, plant science and soil science, food safety and nutrition, natural resource management is also social economic. On the extension side, we have the small farm, small ruminants, horticulture, IPM, plant pathology, organic farming, and also the 4-H youth development, human health and nutrition, as well as the minority health and aging. And this is the part that really excites me every day. And without the team and building this dedicated team to the mission and to ensure that we are implementing what we are envisioning together is what this college is all about. So from the student, the diversity in our student, with their number being increasing, it helped the college to implement what we have envisioned. Also the faculty and staff who are dedicated to our mission in the College of Agriculture. So, but this is again a team that dedicated to the cause and every day go out to implement what we have on our plans. So again, some of our resources. So we have again the research farms, which I'll be talking about it here shortly. But also we have established certain mission and initiatives, actually, certain initiative that we saw that there is a great need in our state for it, as well as to our stakeholders. And one of which is the Industrial Hemp Initiative. So it took us about a year to plan for it. And when it was time to start the execution of the plan, the pandemic took place. But again, going back to the team and how much they're dedicated to the implementation, we were able to start and follow our timeline and to execute the plans that we have developed for industrial hemp. And a year later, the team has been able to secure external funding for their initiative over $500,000, again, to feed into this initiative. And as of this month, we have, when we started throughout the state of Missouri, and we had about 20 acres of industrial hemp research plots throughout the state of Missouri. And now they have exceeded the 500 acres with some of the growers who are interested in industrial hemp. Also, the team, we were able to initiate an initiative for COVID response team. So again, when COVID hit, again, with the team that we have, we saw that we cannot afford to sit back and not to be responsive to our stakeholders. So we initiated and we put a team together who until today, they still exist, they still meet. And also I'm happy to report that they were also successful in sourcing some of external funding. And Dr. Castile mentioned yesterday about the Excite program or the Excite grant. And we have received 2 of them as part of, again, our team secured 2 of those grants from the Excite program. So again, we continue to build more resources, but most of what's really the important resource that we have is the 3 of the research farms. The first one is the certified organic research farm. It's Busby Farm, which is about 278 acres, all certified organic. And again, they have multiple projects, some of which are projects with collaboration with other universities who those projects are conducted under the condition of the certified organic. So in just 2 weeks ago, one of our faculty was able to secure another $500,000 of grant for work in that on that farm to do research in organic farms. Also, we have a conventional farm, that's Carver Farm. So it is 178 acres. So it houses different, again, activities. So on that site, we have the aquaculture complex. So that consists of the indoor and also outdoor research facility. Also, we have greenhouses on that farm, again, to allow our faculty to do the research. And we have a small animal clinic on that side. The third farm that we are currently working on, which is 350 acres, it's our animal research farm. And it is under construction now to put facility on that farm. The map down below, it shows the state of Missouri and how strategically we are located or position ourselves, again, to serve our constituents throughout the state of Missouri. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 land-grant universities here in the state of Missouri, and we work together, again, to make sure that the citizens of the state of Missouri are taken care of. So from the beginning, we have realized who are our stakeholders. So the minorities, all the underrepresented small farmers, those are stakeholders that we connect with and also we cater to, and our programs are designed for those stakeholders. So we strategically position ourselves and put our satellite offices in those areas where we have large concentration of stakeholders in those areas. So you can see that, again, our main campus being in central Missouri, so that's in Jefferson City. Then we have a satellite office on the western side, so that's in Kansas City area, that serve the neighboring counties in that area, southwest Missouri, also St. Louis area, to serve, again, all the stakeholders that with programs that we have around that office, and also southeast, which we have 3 satellite offices, and you will see in the next map why we have that many number of satellite offices in southeast Missouri. So as I mentioned, we have known who are our stakeholders, and we know where they are located. And if you see that this is the poverty map that shows, again, the state of Missouri with each county, and to show where are those, what I call them, the hot spots in terms of poverty. So you can see that, again, our offices are located in those regions. So and if you look in the southeast, poverty reaches up to 29%. So where is the national average is about 12.7%. So we are in those areas to, again, serve our stakeholders and to know the needs of our stakeholders. So, of course, funding is very essential to be able to establish and to implement those programs. And NIFA, USDA NIFA, is our biggest support for our budget, which basically accounts for about 97% of our budget. So, but again, we have identified our critical issues in research and extension that based on the needs of our stakeholders, and we aligned our objectives to the needs of our stakeholders. So we have created some of those programs that are that they are required for our stakeholders, as well as also for USDA. So again, we look at the strategic plan from USDA and align again our critical issues in accordance to also USDA NIFA. So in research, again, we have different programs. So, and the highlight of the programs, again, when it comes to research, is small ruminants. So there was the question that I was asked before, do land grants duplicate the effort? So if there are 2 land grant universities in the state of Missouri, does that mean that they duplicate the effort? And the answer is no, they do not. They collaborate, and they have different different areas that they serve. So one of our strengths, again, is in small ruminants when it comes to animal. Also, aquaculture is another strength of ours. Poultry is another area that that we are working in. And again, you can see the number of universities that we collaborate with. MU is one, University of Arkansas, as well as other universities, with funding that we receive from NIFA, as well as DHS and NRC, NCARC, and MDOA. So plant science program is another area where we focus on the soybean genetic breeding, also hydroponic and aquaponic production is another area of strength that we have in terms of research, biological control of plant diseases, also the high tunnel. So high tunnel vegetable production is another area that we focus on, and we have a large presence of activities in that area. So we mentioned about the value-added specialty crop. So, and this is something that we are very close in collaboration with the University of Missouri. And Dean Chris has mentioned about our collaboration in that area. And I think you will hear soon about the successful achievement of securing grant, multi-institution grant in the millions that I can say. So, but wait until the official news comes out. But this is something, again, the powerful of collaboration and how much you can achieve by collaborating effort. So again, I mentioned about the industrial hemp. This is another area of the areas that we specialize in, and we have also expanded our collaboration. We are collaborating with other universities. Universities do not have any research activities, so such as Missouri State University and also Southeast Missouri University. So, and we have expanded again our effort to work with them. And the grant that I have mentioned earlier about industrial hemp, they are a collaborator with us and co-PI on that grant. Natural resource program is another also area of strength that we have in remote sensing, technology for health assessment of forestry ecosystem. Also, the soil health is another area that we have strength in, and also risk management in terms of looking into nanomaterial and the implication of nanomaterial in different environment, whether it is in water or soil. So the other area that also we have strengthened, which is the food safety program. And this is the program that I was part of, and I was working on that in the food safety area from biotechnology perspective, looking into the rapid detection of pathogen, foodborne pathogen, to reduce the time of detection, again, to help that the food safety. So again, socioeconomic, so program, this is another area of our strength. So where we work with youth, also rural community. So as far as the research facility, so as I mentioned earlier, so we have the 3 research farms. We have two other research buildings, and also the Aquaculture Research Center. We have Center of Excellence in Environmental Science and also in GIS. So again, those are some of the resources that we have for research. So I'm going to move on to, again, the extension. So because extension is extremely important for our program. This is how we go out and implement and share the knowledge that we and the programs that we develop at the university. So again, this is the focus on, this is our innovative small farm program, outreach program, so ISFOP. One of our collaborators have mentioned yesterday how our team is working in collaboration with the University of Missouri, and this is some of the team members that we have, again, in the ISFOP program. So, and you can see that our focus is to look at how we can economically benefit our stakeholders and participants when they join, again, our programs. So again, this is a map of the state of Missouri looking at the different counties that we serve throughout the state of Missouri. So we are in 31 counties with different programs that we have, and our objective is to increase that number. Those are some of the current areas that we specialize in, again, with programs that we have in those different counties throughout the state of Missouri. So I mentioned about the high tunnels. So this is one of the major specialty of ours, where we have worked with farmers on the sourcing the grant for getting the material for the buildings, and also educate them about how to construct the building, and also how to use it to increase their income. So again, some of the regional programs. So I'm happy to mention that we have built also and established the Black Farmer Network. So, and actually this network, we have started on this a year ago. A year ago is when we started, and we identified some of the Black farmers throughout the state of Missouri, because we noticed that there is a need, that they have needs as farmers, and programs that they would like to have, so they would be able to thrive as farmers in the state of Missouri. And we can see lately in the news how there is a lot of articles about Black farmers throughout, again, the United States, but we are leading that effort, again, in the state of Missouri, to ensure and to listen to the Black farmers and to see what their needs are, so we can help them with the different programs that we have. So again, it ranges in, from composting, also seedlings distribution. This is something that, again, we work with our small farmers in different programs. This is, again, a high tunnel, and how our team is involved with erecting those high tunnels. So, and of course, our presence in the state fair. So that's, again, is very important for us. But here are some of the successes behind the collaboration that we have. So from collaboration with 1862 as well as 1994. So you probably have also learned about the 1890 Center of Excellence. We are participating in all four center of excellence. So that were established last year for the 1890. Our external funding, again, this year has increased. This is one of my focus, is to see that we are bringing more funding, because funding is one of our biggest challenge. Again, when we work those different programs, but the team was able successfully to secure almost $12 million in funding, and also in pending proposal. As of last month, we have almost 16.5 million in grant proposal that they are pending. So I mentioned about the collaboration with the 1862, that's the University of Missouri. So where we have patent also together. So this is again a result of the collaborative effort. On the academic side too, we have just signed a memorandum of understanding with the University of Missouri to exchange some of the courses that we offer. So where our students will take some of the courses that MU offer, and also MU student can take some of the courses that LU offers. Also, we have established memorandum of understanding with two-year colleges, where we established the 2+2, again, to bring some of those students to complete their degree coming from the two-year colleges. And I mentioned about the collaboration with the with some of the colleges in research. So we mentioned about the specialty crops. So that's another area that that result of the collaboration. And I mentioned about the research in organic transition strategies, and this is the grant that we have just received lately. Our challenges still, funding is one of the big challenge. However, so we're still working to compete with those call for proposal for external funding. And we have been successful, but we still not there in terms of fulfilling the need that our stakeholders require. So we are in need to build more capacity for our research and extension, and also need for the infrastructure. And of course, we're looking always for more collaboration. This is just a product that we have started last year, again, during the pandemic, where we have a monthly highlight that we share, where we share about highlights, what we do in the College of Agriculture, and we'll be very excited to and happy to share those with you if you would allow us to. And I end this with this quote, the Upper philosophy, so which is from South Africa. So I am who I am because who we all are. And I think this explains how powerful is collaboration. So without the collaboration, we will not be able to get to that level where I have shared with you. And I look for more collaboration and more work with you on different projects. Again, thank you very much. And I look forward again for all the collaborations.
Thank you, Majed. It's great to hear about the great things going on at Lincoln University, and I know the folks in the region are excited to hear about the wonderful things. I do want to hit a couple questions here very quickly in the time we have left. I want to go to Dean Daubert first. And Dean, you talked a lot about, when you were doing the strategic plan, you talked about partnership, collaboration, stakeholders. Dig into that a little bit. How do you see those partnerships coming to life in the college? Are there some things that you see happening with your stakeholders and how you've involved them? I know you've worked in food processing and value-added agriculture as an example, but are there some things that really stand out in that partnership area as you think about the future of the college?
Right. So thank you for the question. Our strategic plan wasn't developed in a vacuum. Ultimately, we have a commitment to serving all Missourians, to advancing and promoting Missouri agriculture and natural resources. You see in our strategic plan the influence of that external input into our future. I point out a few things in the grand ideas of our strategic plan, and I'll come back to the Show Me State Food, Beverage, and Forest Products Manufacturing Initiative. That initiative has received widespread support. It's been embraced by the governor's office of the state of Missouri. We are moving forward with respect to that grand idea, but in partnership with Missouri's commodity organizations, with the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Conservation. We have an initiative right now called Mo5, or Missouri 5, and the 5 represents major commodity groups and organizations within the state. And we are now working with those organizations to best serve their farmers, the ranchers of the state, the farmers and ranchers of Missouri, again, in partnership with those industries to bring prosperity to Missouri agriculture.
Yeah, I know, going back to you, Majed, as you've talked about the college and some things you're talking about, one of the things that, again, strikes at the same thing that Dean Daubert talks about, I'd love to know real quickly here, how do you stay in touch with your clientele at the grassroots level? What do? You talked about the 31 counties you touch in extension. You talked about the way that you have presence in certain areas where your population that you're targeting really exists. How do you stay in touch with those clients to make sure that the programs you're doing are aligned with what they need and what they desire most?
Very good question. So as far as in terms of development of the program, it's all based on the need assessment that our educators conduct, and then they go back and design those programs. Now, how they stay in touch, again, we have programs year round that are conducted where we have a structure. So in each of those offices, we have coordinators, and those coordinators work directly with our area educator who implement the plans and the programs that we have in those areas year round.
All right, and I want to go back to Dean Daubert. Dean, you talked about, I heard you say this several times in your presentation about the great team you have around you. I know that includes not only people that work on campus, but you consider the team to be also those that work out there, your carrot reps, your stakeholders. When you talk about team, I'd like to hear a little more about what does that mean to you, and why is that important to bring people with you as you go along?
Right, Team Missouri Agriculture, right? None of us can accomplish what we all can when we all work together. So throughout our process, we continue to interact with those partners, friends at Missouri Farm Bureau, Department of Agriculture, Conservation, all the commodity groups. We make it a priority to engage with them routinely. In fact, later this week, I'll be on tour through our state capital in Jefferson City, meeting with our partners. We realize that if we're united, if we're coordinated, we can accomplish so much more. And I am blessed to be in this position, to be in this role, to have such outstanding partners. And forgive me for saying this, but amongst the finest partners is you, Marshall, and our partners and friends at MU Extension.
Well, Majed, I'll give you a closing point here, and thank you, Dean. That's not necessary, but Majed, you do represent, obviously, you have the opportunity to work at an 1890 institution, and I just think it would be good if you just take a second, and why do you think the 1890's role is important today? What does it bring? What's the value it brings today? I'd like to hear that.
Absolutely. So again, we do very essential work. So when I look at the state of Missouri, so and I look at the demographic of the state of Missouri, we have, as stakeholders, we have close to 1 million Missourians who fall under the category that I have mentioned that we serve as an 1890. And this is what you find in all the 1890s in, across the nation. So there are 19 of us, and we share the same mission. So to serve those 1 million Missourians, it requires a lot of resources, a lot of collaboration too. And you and I, we have been, planning to make difference in that, in that effort. So it does take a lot of collaboration, again, to reach out to those Missourians who are in need of those programs. And we have, as the 1890, and again, as our mission, under the 1890, this is the clientele that we serve in the state of Missouri.
And I'm going to go back to Dean Daubert for one last question. Dean, I'm going to go to you. I asked Majed this question. You think about land grant, you mentioned it a lot in your presentation. Why is the land grant mission relevant today? Closing thought.
The land grant mission initially brought knowledge and education to everyone at a time when education was not necessarily affordable. Moving forward, that mission is still relevant, that education means opportunity. It really does, and I think we all believe and can commit to that. Now more than ever, creating and bringing opportunities to all of our stakeholders here in the state of Missouri, all Missourians, bringing that opportunity, knowledge. That challenge, that mission is as relevant today as it's ever been.
So whether it be at an 1862, an 1890, or 1994, and I know we have folks in the 1994s that are joining us today as well, the land grant mission remains something that's really important in our society. Justin Morrow might have been the author of it, and Lincoln might have signed it, but it's just as relevant today, if not more so, than it was when it started many, many years ago. So in closing, I want to say thank you to, again, our colleagues at Lincoln University, our colleagues here at the University of Missouri and College of Agriculture, Food and Natural Resources. It's been a great conversation today. I know that either of them would be more than happy for you to reach out to them if you have questions directly. I did get a couple questions that I just can't get to, but we'll try to weave back around to those in some other way. But we do want to remind you that in a few minutes, we're going to be taking about an 8-minute break here, and at 10:15, we're going to be coming back on with a conversation around extension engagement, which I think you'll be really interested in. I also want to let folks know that some of you have asked, will this conference, this program the recordings be available? And they are. If you go to the hub that you're interfacing with to get online, you will find them there. And our great team here are trying to post those as quick as they can. And we've already had people tell us they're watching the recording, so we know it's working. So again, thank you so much for being with us. We'll be back in about 8 minutes. Take care.
Are you an agricultural business owner looking to expand your services or company? Or are you an ag entrepreneur interested in bringing your dream operation to life? If you answered yes, then it's time for you to contact the Missouri Small Business Development Centers. Our agricultural business counselors provide valuable services to agri-entrepreneurs facing today's challenges, whether it be through training, one-on-one counseling, or assistance with funding your business. The Missouri SBDC wants to see you take your ideas to the next level. Talk to your local Missouri SBDC or the Missouri SBDC for Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Visit MissouriSBDC.org and talk to us today.
In total, the work that happens in this school really does impact every aspect of people's lives every day. The soil is the medium out of which things grow. We do water resources, atmospheric science, and then of course there's what's growing on the land and in those waters, so fisheries and wildlife, and then also how people interact with that space, so parks, recreation, tourism, and also sport management.
A lot of challenges and issues that humans have in human society really go back to natural resources and their availability and their quality.
We're trying to solve some major complex problems. We're worried about, climate change and environmental impacts. And we're also worried about human health.
To address the modern and future natural resource issue, it requires a team to work together.
Breaking down those silos, getting rid of the departmental walls, I think that allows our faculty to respond more quickly. And I think it also allows for a broader educational experience for our students.
Without collaboration, we would not be able to put all the pieces together to kind of think how these systems are performing in a broad way.
You know, probably the best recent example of an emergent issue would be COVID. One of our researchers, Chung Ho Lin, has been on the forefront with partners in the Life Sciences Center and working on tracking the emergence of the COVID.
We can use wastewater as an indicator to predict the trend of this SARS-CoV long before the outbreak or long before the symptoms show up.
Those innovations are contributing to a healthier environment and healthier humans, and that feels like a really important thing to be working on. We're really proud of the Center for Agroforestry being a program of distinction here in CAFNR. We're focusing on the integration of trees and shrubs with crops or livestock, and this really is kind of a diversification of farms that has applications in the Midwest, but also around the world.
The Basket Research Center is an extremely important asset for the School of Natural Resources. We have the opportunity to see things in that natural forest environment, things that range from soil science to water and hydrology, wildlife, as well as forestry and general ecology principles.
We may be really the only center of our type that focuses on agroforestry across research, teaching, extension, and economic development.
In a lot of ways, the research centers provide living laboratories. You really learn it by seeing it and doing it. And so the research centers give us areas where we can do those things.
The crops and species that we work with are long-term species.
There's a huge amount of impact from good stewardship of natural resources and understanding how things work so that we can improve that for humans and society, and that's ultimately what our students are doing.
It's a very exciting field to be in, an exciting environment that really just brings about innovation and creativity and keeps us all on our toes.
The research centers are the Mizzou flag across our state.
Having the technicians available at the centers, having the acreage, the facilities, providing the resources on campus, the graduate student stipends, all of those play into a very critical role in being able to do what we do and to do as much as we do.
It's so important to have this diversity of our climates and our research centers, because then we get to find out, does it really work? We go everything from the Delta, it's the southern type agriculture, to the upper Midwest at some of our northern research centers, to really the Southwest, that's Texas, Oklahoma. We capture all those environments. So what's neat about Missouri is that our researchers can do a study that encompasses all those different environments. It makes it very unique.
And because of this, I can look at different pathogens that might be moving into the state, different strategies that might be practiced in different corners.
Taking research from the laboratory to the field is extremely important. That's where the rubber meets the road.
It allows for growers to be able to implement different strategies and see different perspectives on the potential for improving their own production practices, as well as putting those dollars back into their pockets.
So we try and be a little more inclusive in how we look at things and think about the unexpected consequences of policy. A crop policy can affect livestock markets. A biofuel policy can affect vegetable oil markets, and these things interact.
We're converting sunlight into steak. That's the name of the game. So we have been working with our idea of trying to add value to calves post-weaning. We've been doing a grazing study. We're evaluating herbicide use in combination with fertilizer to the pastures to make the forage more productive and hopefully improve weight gain on the animals.
Sanborn Field was important in 1888, and it's just as important today. The research at Sanborn Field can demonstrate that by managing our soil, we can make it better, healthier environmentally.
My research matters for Missouri producers primarily because field crop diseases are recurring from year to year, and they can cause hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in yield losses annually. And so the research I do really helps to provide information to growers to help put that money back in their pockets.
We're trying to add value to calves. We're trying to utilize our natural resources in a sustainable way. And we're trying to add revenue to farmers' operations.
Well, having these local experts at these research centers is extremely important because they have their hand on the pulse of the community. They know what their struggles are, and they can tailor their research to answer those questions. So that makes it extremely important, but also very impactful in our local communities.
Why this matters really comes down to the fact that we today have an impact on our future. It's not just about how I'm managing my farm today, but what's going to happen for my children's generation and my children's children's generation.
If you look at the footprint of CAFNR research, we take care of the land, the water, the animals, plants, and we also take care of our atmosphere. So when you look at our research footprint, it's broad, but it is also deep. We have invested heavily in research infrastructure on campus as well as off campus throughout the state.
The main mission of the Bond Life Science Center is discovery-driven research, so we try to understand at a very fundamental level how living organisms work. Those include human, animal, and plant biological systems for improved health and well-being of humanity. We also have unique resources under one roof in that we have greenhouses, plant growth chambers, and also an animal care facility that is very high quality and allows researchers to have all their resources in this building.
I'm the Associate Director of the National Spine Resource and Research Center, so I coordinate shipments of pigs and pig tissues or anything to the NIH community that requests pig samples. A lot of the agriculture models involve disease resistance, any kind of trait that's going to benefit the animal. So if you can make an animal not get sick, if you can get an animal to be more efficient, that's what the agricultural models involve. For the biomedical models, we try to recapitulate that disease in the pig. It can vary from anywhere to cancer, to various eye diseases, respiratory diseases, things like that.
This is a state-of-the-art plant growth facility, and When we designed it, we tried to anticipate all of our current researchers' need as well as projecting 30 years into the future to try to be prepared for the challenges we don't even know about today. That allows researchers on campus to address cutting-edge plant biology questions that are fundamentally important to society. We feed primarily our livestock, corn and soybean and some other mixed meals, and so enhancing the quality of that feed is going to directly benefit humans, whether they're consuming entirely plants or consuming a meat-based diet.
Anytime you have a healthier animal, it's going to be more efficient, it's going to be more sustainable, there's less feed costs, there's less medical expenses, and it creates a more efficient process to get that meat on the market, and it's going to be a healthier product.
What do we all hope to accomplish with initiatives like NextGen? And that's to have real impact of our science on the health and well-being of our entire community. An important area where NextGen will interface with CAFNR is in the use of animal models to study diseases. One can create pigs or rats that have the same symptoms, behaviors as, say, for example, a child with cystic fibrosis.
If we can successfully cure these diseases in pigs, that can be applied to humans, and those diseases that affect young children and even our elderly.
And we're just now seeing the first treatments have real impact.
We're very passionate about what we do, and we're very excited about what we do, and we love to help people and see how this is going to benefit people. I also get excited about ways that we benefit animal agriculture.
I think it is especially important that the younger generation of scientists learn to work together, and we have a lot of collaborations between graduate students and postdocs figuring out how to do experiments the correct way. It is often asked what basic research does for the world. It all works because of the scientific method that is always self-critical and self-correcting and asks questions that need to be answered by experimentation, not by conjecture.
And that's largely what our graduate students, undergraduate students, and postdocs are spending their time doing, making fundamental discoveries that hopefully do translate into improvements for society.
Good morning and welcome back to our second day of our mini land grant session hosted here in the North Central region by the University of Missouri. My name is H.C. Russell and I'm one of the CARET delegates here from the University of Missouri, and I get the honor of introducing our next participants in our next part of the program. Hope you enjoyed our last program where we were able to talk to the deans of both College of Agriculture at the University of Missouri and our land grant partner with 1890 Institutions, Lincoln University, about how you creating change or leading change in the future. Our next presentation is on creating the future, and it's going to be led by Shibu Joyce. We met Dr. Joyce yesterday. He serves as the Associate Dean for Research for the College of Agriculture, Food and Natural Resources and is Director of all of our University of Missouri research stations. Dr. Joyce?
All right. Thank you, HC. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce two of our administrators from the University of Missouri as speakers of this session. Dr. Chad Higgins is the Associate Vice Chancellor for Extension and Engagement here at the University of Missouri. He is leading us in developing innovative and relevant programming and partnerships to solve Missouri's grand challenges related to the economy, education, and health. Prior to joining us, Chad served as Senior Director of Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. Chad has been with us for a year now. Dr. Susan Renoe is Assistant Vice Chancellor for Research, Extension, and Engagement at the University of Missouri, a joint position between the Office of Research and Economic Development and the Office of Extension and Engagement. In her role, Susan works to strengthen the university's impact on the state of Missouri. She is also Executive Director of the NSF-funded Center for Advancing Research Impact in Society and Principal Investigator of the NSF-funded National Alliance for Broader Impacts. So please join me in welcoming both Chad and Susan. Well, we'll be using a discussion format for this session, and I encourage you, the audience, to post your questions to make it as interactive as possible. And Chad is joining me in the studio, and Susan is joining us over Zoom. So, Chad, I will get started with you. I will ask you a simple question. Extension at many land-grant institutions is within their colleges of agriculture or institutes of agriculture. Whereas here, and I don't think we are unique, there may be a few other universities, but it is campus-wide. And when you look at our engagement mission, it is system-wide. So tell us a little bit about the way we are structured here at the University of Missouri with our extension and engagement mission.
Well, thank you, Dr. Jost, for the softball. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you for the introduction. Well, this question really boils down to structure and culture. It's one of the most craziest things about extension work, but it's also one of the most awesome aspects of extension work, is that when you go to a regional or a national conference and you meet with your colleagues and you start talking about what you do in your state, you realize that no one is structured the same. And it doesn't take long to sit around a table with our peers and colleagues from other land grants and talk about how we're structured. It's just all over the place. We approach our work differently from the structure standpoint. It requires unique approaches. And so where some extension organizations are within a college, or some are serving under an academic department under a dean or a provost or a chancellor, or serves under a center, the striking thing is our missions are all very similar. And if you sat down and you looked at the strategic plans of all of our extension work, they would sound very familiar. But our structure forces us to do things a little bit differently, though we have the same end game in place. In Missouri, Lincoln University is the 1890 LGU. The University of Missouri here in Columbia is the 1862 LGU. And so I'll be speaking on that structure from the University of Missouri from the Columbia standpoint. And to your point, Dr. Jost, this is not just a university-wide approach, it's a system approach. And so that's a unique niche. And so we are able to extend not only the university, the research and educational programming from this university to all Missourians, but also the other 3 campuses involved in the system. So recently, and I'm speaking a little bit of history here before my time, but recently all 4 of the campuses were placed under one person, Dr. Moon Choi, who is the president of the system, of the University of Missouri system, and that is 4 campuses. That's the University of Missouri at Kansas City, the University of Missouri at St. Louis, our S&T Science and Technology campus in Rolla, and the University of Missouri here in Columbia. And that comprises of the University of Missouri system. Dr. Stewart, who you all met over the last couple of days, is the Vice Chancellor for Extension Engagement here at the Missouri campus in Columbia, but also the Chief Engagement Officer for the UM system. This alignment offers MU Extension Engagement a very unique position to serve the whole state with just an abundance of resources to choose from and to partner. As the Associate Vice Chancellor for Extension Engagement, I oversee both of the on-campus and the off-campus faculty programmatic aspects of our work, as well as the county operations and the Missouri University Continuing Education departments. And though we're very broad, we certainly enjoy our traditional partnerships with the College of Ag, Food, and Natural Resources. We share an associate dean from that college. We have a great partnership with veterinary medicine, and historically speaking, and I'll come back to that term, the College of Human and Environmental Sciences, where we also shared an associate dean. Some of our not so traditional partners here at MU is the College of Engineering. We share an associate dean, and the School of Medicine, where we also share an associate dean. Both of these associate deans have a significant percentage of their efforts focused on extension engagement for Missouri. Back to the College of Environmental Sciences, this was our former home of Youth and Families program. That was disbanded in July. But that set of events offered an excellent opportunity to take the faculty that was seated within that college and put them across campus in departments that it made sense for their expertise. And so this created an opportunity, an avenue to create really cool partnerships with the School of Health Professions, College of Arts and Sciences, College of Business, College of Education. We also have faculty members sitting in the School of Journalism and our Sinclair School of Nursing. This has opened the door to productive discussions about how to use extension and engagement to advance and enhance the scholarly engagement across the system. We simply have people everywhere, and that has offered a really unique position for us to engage the whole university, to then engage the whole state. Another partnership that is, I think, unique here is the law school. We share a position with the law school as the director of Entrepreneurial Legal Clinic. This connection offers our clientele and our participants in our programs across the state services around the legalities of starting small businesses in their communities, or if they want to shore up or expand an already existing small business. What are the legalities of that? How do you do this legally? And what are the loopholes that someone should be considering before they do that? This is a really neat offering from an educational standpoint for our clients. And that relationship immediately created another relationship with our Veterans Clinic, where we're going to start offering our county offices as a virtual hub for veterans to use for consultations. So these partnerships just create a domino effect of the different services and the resources and the educational programmings that occur within the system to just disperse and disseminate across the state. I will say a little bit about another unique example of how this broad, holistic approach is helpful for the state is our relationship with the School of Medicine. And through the Office of Research, we've devised a way to put a check mark on protocols running through IRB that from health sciences that allows a researcher or a principal investigator to click a box that says this is happening off campus. And once that box is clicked, a little drop down comes down and says, all right, where is this actually taking place? What counties are involved? And once that's clicked, the question comes up of have you engaged extension and engagement to help grease the skids in those communities? Medical research happens at the speed of trust. And so this allows the extension network to come in play because we're already in those communities. We already have established that trust. And so when a researcher from the university wants to do something off campus, that avenue then opens up where they can establish a relationship almost immediately. As you know, extension professionals, we know everyone in our community. Our Rolodex is unsurpassed. It's unequaled. We know everyone. And so this offers a very unique position for researchers within the system or educational programmers within the system who want to engage in a scholarly endeavor across the state. We have a network in all 114 counties in the city of St. Louis. We're all over the place, and we can offer a real easy conduit. I did mention a continuing ed, and I wanted to say a little bit about what that portfolio looks like for the University of Missouri Extension engagement. This includes our Law Enforcement Training Institute, our Fire and Rescue Training Institute, Emergency Preparedness, Continuing Education for Health Professions, and this is for physicians and nurses looking for accreditation and continued lifelong learning, labor education, our Missouri Training Institute, which offers business performance and organizational effectiveness programs, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, and the Veterinary Extension Continuing Education Program. So it's fairly robust continuing ed programs that run through Extension and Engagement. So all 4 campuses within the University of Missouri system have dedicated engagement officers that serve on the UM System Engagement Council. And this ensures a smooth operation between the 4 campuses and open communication. And it helps us utilize the individual strengths of all 4 campuses to do scholarly engagement across the state. And to maintain those connections between research and extension, our 2 offices, as you mentioned, share a mutual associate vice chancellor, and that's Dr. Susan Renoe. And so, Dr. Renoe, I'm going to turn the mic over to you to say a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I have a question very specifically about that, Susan. But before that, Chad, thank you very much for that comprehensive answer to my question, opening question, and you covered a lot of ground. I've been here at the University of Missouri now for the past 12 years, and it's fascinating when I hear about extension and engagement. Every time when I hear about, that you have such your footprint, you look at it and it is so broad and so deep. So kudos to all of you leaders leading our extension and engagement mission, which is indeed statewide. And you brought up some of the unique, well, not so unique, but still some strengths that you have here on this particular campus. As many of you know, Missouri is one of the most comprehensive universities in the country with medicine and vet medicine and agriculture, engineering, law, all under one roof. And you do have that opportunity to collaborate across all different colleges, and you do have a footprint in almost every college, it looks like, on campus, and of course then our other system campuses. So remarkable indeed. So Susan, my question to you is, Chad started with that idea there, and you have sort of a unique leadership position. You are a joint appointment between the Office of Research and Economic Development and of course the Office of Extension and Engagement. And so, in other words, you are the connector. So tell us a little bit about your specific leadership role at the University of Missouri.
Thank you, Shibu, for that great introduction. It's really good to be here. I love to talk about bringing the research and communities together, so this is right up my alley. I'm very fortunate to be in this position that very few people enjoy, bringing research together with communities. My background is in research development and public engagement, particularly working with researchers to address the National Science Foundation's broader impacts criterion, which mandates a societal benefit to the research funded by the foundation. The heart of broader impacts is communities. So tying research development with extension is a very natural partnership. It was through the visionary leadership of Vice Chancellor for Extension and Engagement Marshall Stewart and former Vice Chancellor for Research Mark McIntosh that this partnership was born several years ago. One of the things that I think is really telling about this partnership is that it's really a testament to its value that when I started this role, there were very few people who had titles like mine. Today, we see a lot of research, of offices of research and engagement. They're becoming much more common. People are seeing the benefits of connecting research and community, which is the heart of the land grant mission. You mentioned the connector. So one of the things that also came to be when my position was created was also bringing what we used to call here at MU the Broader Impacts Network under extension and engagement and research, something that we now call the connector. And the job of the connector is to do just that, to connect researchers with stakeholders in the community, to help them create public engagement plans that are meaningful, that have impact, that move just from doing a lot of activities into actual impact. We're also the home for the National Center for Advancing Research Impact in Society, which is the NSF-funded center that really focuses on building capacity for organizations and researchers to engage with the public. So for me, this brings all of my interests together, from when I was a graduate student doing archaeology education, to being a professor of strategic communication, to being in research development. So this partnership is a really great one. I really enjoy it, and I am very fortunate every day that I get to be doing something that I really love.
Chad, I'm going to come back to you and pose a question, and then I will later go back to Susan for her thoughts. But yesterday, we had our opening speaker, Dr. Wendy Winterstein, president of Iowa State University, and she was talking about the role of the land-grant university. So tell us, I'm sure you listened to Dr. Winterstein's talk, and tell us a little bit about, like how does extension fit into the future of the land-grant university and its mission?
Yeah, I think the short answer here is that we just simply have to remain relevant, and relevant is a real tricky term, and relevant to who, and what is the level of relevance that we're talking about, and it'll look different in each state somewhat, but the end goal is always going to be the same, is looking at the return on investment for the clientele that we reach on a daily basis. And also the return on investment for local and state and the federal government. From an extension and engagement standpoint here at MU, the thing that resonates most with me is just the ability to collaborate. And President Winterstein talked about that deep collaboration, and that is something that I hope we embody here. We strive to every day. I can say Dr. Renoe and I, we have the opportunity probably to meet and talk about a number of things, probably 3 or 4 times a week. And so I think we strive hard to build these convergent opportunities between our departments that we serve in and serve for, and our county partners and other partners across the state, internal and external, to have these convergence opportunities to talk. And and we also just have to be honest with ourselves as well. We've been doing needs assessments for a long time, since the early part of last century, to figure out what type of programming we need to be hitched to. And so we have a fairly good feeling about what our communities need. We hear it pretty regularly. And so we know what they're struggling with on a day-to-day basis, and we'll continue to be strength-based, in my opinion, is going to be very important. So when we ask these questions, we get just a myriad of responses from our stakeholders, and some of them follow squarely within our wheelhouse, and we'll use our strengths to address those needs. And we'll also find needs from our community across the state that may fall within our wheelhouse a little bit, but maybe not. And so partnering with those who have those expertise and working with them in tandem to address those problems will be critical. And then there's going to be problems that we encounter in our communities across the state that are not in our wheelhouse at all. And so knowing when to hand that off, that's going to be very crucial. Karen Funkenbush yesterday talked about mental health and the importance of being able to know when to hand that off to the experts who can actually handle some of these deep issues. We're not clinical in nature. And so though we can be a great conduit, we can disseminate wonderful information, and we can have places for people to meet, we do need to stay in our lane sometimes to make sure that we're doing what we can do at the appropriate level. So I think it's important that we learn how to partner. and not only partner in the aspect of making sure that the right experts are at the table or are in the communities to help address an issue, but also in times of really constrained budgets. We're trying to do a lot more with a lot less, and so these partnerships are even more important because that brings a lot of added expertise, and quite frankly, they're struggling too with their budgets. So I mean, we offer a great partnership for them as well. We offer a great network and conduit. And so working together with these collaborative efforts, again, this deep collaboration, not just with on-campus and our system campuses, but also external partners, is going to be very critical going forward.
Well, Chad, you talked about doing a lot more for a lot less. Let's talk about that for a second. Tell us a little bit about the role of technology in perhaps reaching maybe a broader clientele base. And COVID-19 has taught us a number of lessons, and that perhaps is one of them. And so talk a little bit about the role of technology.
Well, it has certainly, this last year has been a learning curve that in many aspects from a technological standpoint has been positive. We've learned to use technology a lot. I think probably 2 years ago, having a virtual conference, we would have thought silly or a waste of time. No one's going to do that. Or having a meeting that's virtual would not be conducive to a learning environment. And I think we've learned differently. I'm not going to get these numbers properly correct, but last year we did our annual conference in a virtual setting, and we looked at the cost savings from a virtual conference compared to an in-person conference, and it was staggering. It's absolutely staggering. And though we know the importance of face-to-face, but maybe we should do that a little differently too and look at a hybrid approach. We also had, again, I think this number's right. I think we had up somewhere between 20 and 25,000 people participating in that annual conference. And if you think on a yearly basis, you're lucky to have 400 to 500. And so the reach was exponential. With great information. So in that respect, there are a lot of nice caveats to it. But again, I think we're in an age of exploration with the hybrid model, knowing from our standpoint and an extension and engagement standpoint, being present and being in our communities and being there in person is incredibly important. And so we've got to find that tightrope and that we can balance on to where we're present, but we're also safe about it as well.
Right, very good. Well, Susan, you are an expert on broader impacts. So let me ask you a very specific question. Very often we would like to reach out to the youth, and sometimes we struggle when we try to do that. And it's been challenging, and when I travel around the state talking to our stakeholders, I hear some of the concerns that we are really struggling to reach the youth, especially in my world, agriculture, food, and natural resources. So what are the lessons perhaps you have learned over the years of your working in that particular field, and what are some of the messages that you can share with the audience? How to do it more effectively? Yeah.
Absolutely. So Chad mentioned how important it is to meet with people face to face, and during the COVID-19 pandemic, we weren't able to do that. One of the things that I'm very proud of is our 4-H specialists all over the state. We're providing programming multiple times a day, live programming for students every day. So getting in front of them, providing it in multiple contexts, thinking about how we use social media, how we use the internet, how we use YouTube and all those things to make sure that we are staying in front of the youth all the time. I think the other thing is to understand that we have to meet them where they are, right? So as they're getting older, they want jobs. So how do we help them stay employed in this space? How do we help them see the benefits to them, whether it's helping themselves or helping their families? I also think we have to be mindful of the digital divide too. One of the things that COVID-19 showed us is we can do a lot of things over Zoom, but one of the problems is that if you don't have good access to high quality internet or high quality cellular service, it doesn't matter how much great programming we create if we can't help you get to that. So one of the things that I'm most proud of is that during the pandemic, our extension offices often served as internet hotspots for students who needed to connect to school, for students who wanted to connect to programming. So when Chad talks about those deep connections and collaborations, I think that's part of it, is making sure that we're relevant in the lives of our youth, that we're equipping them to have the tools they need to connect and be successful. It's also the great volunteers we have. When you think about how our volunteers are being trained differently, how we're helping them to connect in different ways, I think that's really important.
Very good. Chad, I have a couple of questions here in the chat room, so I'm going to delve into some of them. So let's talk a little bit about the county engagement specialist and how that is structured to help with collaboration within the communities.
Sure. The county engagement specialist is I think, a unique position. Though they're tied to a content area, be it youth and families, or ag business, or CED, a vast majority, or maybe half of their position, maybe a little bit more than half, is focused on developing relationships. And that's what's expected from that position, is to dig into that deep collaborative nature of where we're at in those communities and develop those relationships that, quite frankly, weren't there to begin with. And so, one of the things that I can, this will go back to your early question. It'll be sort of both the pros and the cons of technology during the pandemic. Is that to Susan's point, broadband was a huge issue, and we had students that were virtually educated but had no access, and so we know we exposed a lot of issues in the state as far as broadband is concerned. But one of the things that came out of that was the ability to use our engagement specialists to work with the schools. In some cases, these were areas where we were having a hard entree with the schools. We couldn't get into the schools very well, but during the pandemic, that's one of the things, is extension didn't go away. A lot of our partners shuttered services. The public schools obviously had to continue going, and we continued going, and we became great partners in some of these very rural areas and some of the very inner city areas that we saw that we were having issues with technology. And so this offered an opportunity to create a really, really great partnership. But it's the efforts of that position to focus on developing relationships, to focus on developing partnerships that may be not so traditional from an extension standpoint. So it's been a very, very instrumental position in a lot of our communities across the state.
Great. Well, it's great to hear how you establish those partnerships. I will get into a little bit of that again later on, because I have some specific questions related to COVID and some of the challenges and opportunities. But before we go there, Susan, I have a question from the audience for you that is about the connector. So, you mentioned about that program. So can you give a little bit more details about your program, the connector?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we do is provide support for faculty who are trying to write their public engagement plans, whether that's for NSF, the National Institutes of Health, Department of Energy, anyone who has to write a plan for doing some sort of outreach or engagement. We help them with that. So we help them find the partners to do it. We help them think through the grant writing, and we do that part. We also coordinate something we call Connecting with Missouri Grants. So we have funding from the UM system to support our engagement work on campus. And so we provide support for anyone who's doing public engagement. So that could be a group that's called Science on Wheels. That's graduate students who go out and talk about their research around the state. We provide support for them. We provided support for something called the Army Ants, which is our global champion robotics team. We provide support for faculty and health professions. So anyone across our campus who's interested in creating outreach program and needs support, we do that. We also run something called the MU Engagement Scholars. So this year we have 6 faculty who are fellows within our program, and their goal is to learn about how to do public engagement effectively They're just finishing the first drafts of their public engagement plans. And so by the end of the year, they're going to be more deeply ingrained in communities. They're going to be doing more activities. And our goal is for them to be engaged scholars who are carrying the mission of engagement going forward. So those are the biggest things that they do. In addition, they also run professional development for the Office of Research. So they run research development programming. We'll also be providing professional development training around engagement. So faculty on campus who want to learn more about engaged scholarship, who want to learn more about assessment and evaluation. So we provide those tools as well.
Great, thank you, Susan. Well, I have one more question that I would like to ask from the audience, and Chad, I will start with you. So you mentioned about some of the state's grant challenges. So I really would like you to delve into some of the grant challenges the way that you see, and what would be the role of extension? How do you see extension perhaps changing some of your priorities, maybe adapting some of your priorities based on some of those grant challenges?
Sure. Yeah, one of the neat aspects of the technology was Marshall and I visited every county in the state, all 114 counties virtually, back in the spring, and met with our council members and met with faculty and staff, and talked to them and with them and listened to them around the grand challenges, the questions that they had in their communities. And though we were still in the middle of a health crisis, the issues were still fairly static. We were coming out of that, and one of the things that we were hearing was the job market. There was a lot of economic woes in a lot of our communities. People not going back to work, or businesses having issues filling open positions, and so those are issues that may be specific to the pandemic, or they may not have been, probably were. But the grand challenges seem to be exacerbated through the health crisis. We saw a lot of things just sort of break down during the last year, all the way from the early onset where we saw the breakdown in the food chain. It was just a really scary time, and people were very stressed. Mental health was a huge issue that we heard when we visited with the counties. Housing, just this whole embodiment of community seemed to be crumbling many parts across the state during the pandemic. And though I think through resolve and professionalism and just love of the community, we're pulling through it. But those grand challenges are still there. We still are paying very close attention to the economic status of our communities. And I was thinking about when you asked that question, Sally and Sally's and Kathy's presentation yesterday about helping communities harness the data revolution that may be in their communities. We just are inundated with data, and so much so that we're a little bit overwhelmed with data. And so helping our communities to take a look at what they have access to help make a better informed decision, not only for the economic vitality and resiliency of their community, but for the health of their community, the health of their families. And so I think that's probably a frontier that we'll play a really large role in, because we are also a converger in our communities. We know people, we know places, we know things, and but one of the things that we are not is we're not ethnographers, we're not statisticians, we're not bioinformaticists, we're not epidemiologists, but we have access to those experts within our system. And when we have this data and someone says, well, we want to do something with transportation, well, we may not have that expertise within extension engagement, but we know where to go get that expertise. It's right at our fingertips. And so knowing, again, when to partner and when to hand off a critical issue to someone who has the expertise in doing that will help us attack those grand challenges a lot easier than just trying to do it by ourselves. I mean, by nature, extension professionals want to solve everything for everyone right now. I mean, that's just the nature of an extension professional. That's why we come to work every day, is we want to serve. And so it's hard for us to hand things off, and it's hard for us to sometimes go, okay, maybe I don't have the answers. And so, you know, checking ourselves and slowing down a little bit and making sure that we got the right experts at the table will help a whole lot in addressing those grand challenges.
Great. I'm glad you brought up the project that Doctors Kathy Wataki and Sally and Keller were talking about yesterday, the community learning through the data-driven discovery, CLD3. So you are absolutely right. You need collaborations, and it goes back to the message that Dr. Winterstein was trying to convey to us, extreme collaborations. So Susan, I'm looking at you, and I'm going to ask you a question about all of that. So as Chad said, you know, you need those collaborations with the scientists. You know, you need the data, and perhaps, you know, you need those scientists to help you get the data. So talk a little bit about, you know, again, you being the connector, you know, tell us a little bit about, you know, how do you see that collaboration coming together, and especially in a data-driven world?
Absolutely. I think that that's the future. So when Chad talks about the deep collaborations and we talk about needing partnerships and handing off and we know people, I think that's the secret. When we started the connector several years ago, one of the things that I thought we would spend most of our time working with researchers on their research grants. Time relationships with people so that when we need to connect a researcher with a stakeholder, we have those relationships already, they're ready to go. And I think that that's one of the things that we saw in the pandemic was the relationships that we built across engineering, across vet med, across the School of Medicine, across the School of Journalism, across campus, allowed us to put a lot of things in place much more quickly than universities actually usually run, right? We're not known for being able to move fast, but we moved very fast in terms of the pandemic. So in terms of building these collaborations, I think they're really important.
Well, Susan, I have a follow-up question. It came from our audience, and I think it's an excellent question. So now you are connecting the researchers, and of course we were using the data-driven approach as an example, but how do you make use of this opportunity to tell the citizens of the state, you know, citizens of Missouri, the importance of, you know, what happens in our labs on campus as well as off campus, you know, the research that we do and its impact, you know, affecting the lives of every Missourian? How do you really convey that message? What are your thoughts?
I love that message, because I think that's one of the things I love most about my job is that every day I get to get up and think about how can we make people's lives better. And so I think one of the things is, again, building relationships between stakeholders and communities and researchers so that they're talking to each other and having informed conversations. So when I think about what does success in my job looks like, it looks like communities talking to researchers, talking to communities. So communities informing what research is happening, researchers sharing that information and the results in the community, thinking about practitioners, thinking about policymakers. It's thinking about it in a very broad way. Traditionally, researchers think about communicating their results in a conference or in a paper. We want to talk about how do we use social media? How do we use our websites? How do we use public talks? How do we help that within our entire lab? So when we talk about research communication, we don't just want the researcher to go out. Can they get their postdocs? Can they get their grad students? Can they get their undergrads involved? And one of the things that we try to do in terms of engagement is a lot of times people think engagement will be a chore. What we want them to think about is to develop their engagement identity, what we call the broader impacts identity. Where are the places where you're already engaging and talking to people that you can then connect and plug in? Are you volunteering at the food bank? Are you visiting a nursing home on a regular basis? Where are the places where you're involved, and how can you bring your research to that table? I want to go back for a second to the data-driven approach, because I think this is really important. In the Office of Research, we have a research analytics team, and we're looking at research data. What are we learning about federal priorities? What are we learning about our success rates in research grants? And we're really trying to take a data-driven approach to research. Where are the best chances for research funding? How do we build the best teams to do that? How can data inform that? That also works on the engagement side. in terms of, we have this wonderful center called CAES. And CAES puts together this wonderful All Things Missouri portal. If you want to know data about any community around our state, that data is there. And so what we're trying to do is have researchers use the data to inform, where do we need to do interventions? Where do we need to outreach? I will say that in the city of Columbia, we have a lot of people who want to work with Columbia Public Schools. But if you go 30 minutes outside of Columbia, we have a lot of school districts who could use support from the university, but we don't think about that because we're not looking at the data. So how do we use data to inform engagement? How do we use data to make decisions?
That's a great response.
I think that's the future.
That's great. That's great, Susan. And so I have a follow-up question for you, Chad. Well, going back to the CLD3 project, you do have some experience. That's what I learned this morning related to that particular project and during the pilot phase. And so can you tell us a little bit more about the community learning through data-driven discovery and your experience and perhaps your thoughts on bringing that model to Missouri?
Yeah, so when I was at Iowa State University in Extension and Outreach, we got into the partnership with Sally to work across some of our communities in Iowa to help them harness the data that they have. So some members of the Office of Research and myself, we visited a couple of communities that we chose. Some of them were micropolitans that were growing and were doing great economically. Some of them were micropolitans that were spiraling down, and perhaps we were trying to figure out why. Some of them were smaller communities and some of them were bigger communities, such as Des Moines. And so we went and we talked to the city officials, the local government officials in those towns, and just to try to get a feel of where they were with the data that they have. And one of the things that we found was they had no idea what data they had, and they really didn't even know what type of questions they wanted answered. They didn't really even know where to start. And so this really started at a grassroots level of having the conversation of what data was available and to have a really open discussion about what areas of concern they have for their communities. Was it crime, transportation, education, housing? What was it? Was it infrastructure? What were their rub spots? What was keeping them up at night? And so that process took an awful long time, to have those real deep conversations with the city officials to actually come to a point where they could make a decision on where they wanted to focus on finding some data to help a problem. And I think Sally mentioned Marshalltown and Kathy mentioned the pilot work we did in Marshalltown. We did not start with the transportation issue at all. We started way over here in left field, and after it was a full day of discussions, we got to the bus system, the public transportation system. Marshalltown had grown in 25 years, but they hadn't looked at the routes that the buses were running in the past 25 years. They had a lot of in-migration, and so they had no idea whether that transit system was meeting the needs of the people or not. And so, working with our group in Extension and some of the transportation folks at ISU, we developed a plan with Sally's folks in Virginia and kicked a pilot off and really helped Marshalltown fix a busing problem. And so it was completely done with data, and so that's really exciting because the data's there. We really didn't create a whole lot. We asked some questions. We did some surveys on the street, but most of that data was already there. And so that was really exciting to be able to address a real issue that actually helped the community grow.
Great, great. Well, we have about 10, 12 minutes left in our conversation, so please post your questions as we continue this conversation with Chad and Susan. So I told you earlier that I wanted to bring up the pandemic and the lessons learned and perhaps some of the unique challenges that you faced, but as well as some of the opportunities that you identified. So let's talk about that just a little, and then we will try to wrap up. So talk to us a little bit about some of the the challenges, but also I would like to hear more about some of the opportunities that you identified as a result of the pandemic.
Absolutely. Well, obviously, the health and well-being of our colleagues across the state, our professionals across the state, and the state's population is at the heart of what we do in extension engagement and at the LGU here in Columbia. And over the past year, that has been a true struggle. We're trying desperately to get science-based information into the hands of our professionals so that they can help people in their communities make better decisions to keep their families safe, keep themselves safe. But one of the things we found out pretty fast is that many of our professionals live in areas of the state that were slow to receive this information, to say the least. A little cold to the information, a little slow to adopting the CDC guidances or guidances from the university or other health organizations. And this put many of our colleagues across the state in uncomfortable situations. So that was one of the down points of it, is working through that, being mindful of the local ordinances and being mindful of the local culture, but also ensuring that we have research-based information in the hands of those who want it and need it. I am proud to say that as the health crisis gripped our communities, we stayed in there. Extension and engagement stayed in every community. We certainly pivoted to that virtual environment, but we were present as well as we could be. We were there for schools when they needed assistance for educational programming. We were there for our producers, our commodities, large and small, when the food system broke down, the food chain broke down. We were there for our medical providers that needed access into certain communities. One of the great things that came out of this was that we had a seat on the governor's vaccination plan for the state. Obviously, we still have a lot of work to do there, but we're at the table and we're working on this every day. This has led to some of those deeper connections and those deeper collaborations. When I think about the School of Medicine and Dr. Kathleen Quinn, who is our Associate Dean in School of Medicine, is working in the rural health track of using a cadre of extension professionals to actually be a liaison for clinical trials and to help socialize the clinical trials that could occur in some of our rural outreaches in inner cities, places where access to clinical trials or speedy medical services may not be there. And so this is going to be a really neat collaboration. And so we're looking forward to getting some of our folks trained up on this aspect and actually taking part in this precision healthcare aspect, as we did with Precision Ag. It's just a real targeted approach to improving the lives of the people that we serve.
Oh, you identified some great examples. Thank you for bringing those opportunities out to the audience attention. Susan, anything else you would like to add?
I just want to echo what Chad said about the opportunities to really take advantage of technology, to be involved in the Hacking COVID task force, so 3D printing, PPE devices for our medical professionals. Again, our 4-H folks just go into work every day being creative, trying to meet the needs of students. Our folks were active in their communities trying to make a difference, and then now with the vaccine. So again, thinking about the deep collaborations and partnerships that make that happen, and the souls of our working folks who are working every day despite the challenges of their own family situations and mental health and everything else to make sure that our folks were safe and taken care of.
Great. Well, I think we have time for one more question here, and so perhaps a question that everyone has on their minds, and it's actually asked here in the chat room, and so I'm going to bring that out. Well, it's about funding. How do you, again, you identified a number of new opportunities, well, related to the pandemic or not. You are doing a wonderful job. Well, funding. Tell us a little bit about funding challenges and perhaps even funding opportunities. And it could be in partnerships, but I would like to hear about funding in general and your experience and looking into the future. What do you see? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but still, I would like you to talk about funding as perhaps a challenge as well as an opportunity.
Well, it's been a tough year. There's no doubt about that here in Missouri. It's been a tough year, and I'm sure it has been in many other states that do extension work. The state lines have decreased over the past 7 years here. Federal lines have remained somewhat static. We see that there's probably a good potential growth in external funding. And we also see that there's probably more potential funding that can occur at the county level. But from the state level and the county, or from the federal level, we're kind of where we're at. And but one of the things that that I would go back to is when we try to explain and educate our legislators and our community, or our stakeholders in the community, that what the return on investment for extension engagement is the ability to have that data available and the appropriate data of what that economic impact for this university is and the university system is for the state. And so when it comes time in Jefferson City to look at that budget, that there's a little bit more favoritism for the university system. So I do think being able to tell our story and taking that data to a narrative, even if it's a short narrative and bulleted narrative, that it's a one-pager or maybe a page and a half, but to get that in the hands of the right people who are making decisions for the budget is going to be critical going forward.
Well, thank you, Chad. And Susan, I'm going to give you although I said that was the final question, but I'm going to give you the final question, Susan, and that's about keeping the relevancy of extension in far into the 21st century. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to take a quick dive back into the previous question just for a second, because funding is really something that's near and dear to me. One of the things that Chad briefly touched on was external funding. We have a lot of opportunity through the National Science Foundation and the extended funding they're getting in the Broader Impacts Way to partner with researchers. I know on our campus and on many campuses, researchers are really struggling to find people who can help them with their broader impacts, help them to find support for programming that you're already running, help them come up with new ideas, things you might want to try. I really encourage you to reach out to your research office or to researchers you know and try to be involved in that. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that. The thing I think about keeping extension relevant, several years ago, France Cordova, who was the former director of NSF, basically said we have to stay relevant to the people who fund us. We have to stay relevant to the needs of taxpayers. And that is doing research and creating programming that makes a difference in their lives, and then communicating how we're doing that. So I think that's really important. I think the other thing is to continue tackling the big challenges of the day. We talk about education, health and economy, broadband, workforce development, food insecurity, as well as our traditional areas of extension, which are still important, right? So it's being there for communities when they need us and making sure they feel like we're connected to them. And then, I think our biggest thing for staying relevant is being that connection between the universities and the communities we serve. We talk about the community engagement specialists, the county engagement specialists. I think that role is so critical because we have someone in every county in our state and the city of St. Louis who are that go-between between our university and that community. They can help us understand what the needs in their community are. They can also be the conduit for saying, here's resources the university has. And I just want to say this, and Marshall says this a lot, but I want to echo this. Being a land grant is more than just a designation. It's more than just a line item. For me, it's a way of doing business that I believe is the future of higher education. Whether you're a land grant designated university or not, people can think about what the mission of being a land grant is and how we make a difference in the lives of our people. And that's what I have to say about that. A little bit excited about the future of where the land grant is going. I think it's going to be a little bit of work, but I think easy for us to be relevant because that's what we do every day.
Well said, Susan, well said. I can tell you that cooperative extension has stayed relevant over the 107-year history, And based on the discussion we had over the last hour or so, it is obvious to me, and I'm sure it is obvious to our audience as well, that extension will continue to stay relevant well into the 21st century and beyond. So thank you, Susan, and thank you, Chad, for participating in our discussion today. And thanks everyone for participating. It was, the chat room was very live, and I appreciate you posting your questions and giving me an opportunity to moderate this session. So thanks everyone. Again, we will be back here for the next session at 11:20. Thank you.